Welcome, everybody, to the Integrate Yourself podcast with Allison Pillow and Maya Gottlieb. You can reach me at mayagottlieb.com. You can reach Allison Pillow at pureenergypdx.com. Today, we are talking with an amazing Olympian. And I say amazing because she has done accomplishments in her life in three different sports and has had four-time Olympian accomplishments with a ITU World Triathlon Championship. Her name is Sheila Taormina, and she comes with such great gifts. She has a new revision of her new book, her book, Swim Speed Secrets, Master the Freestyle Technique. Just a little bit more background about her. She won an Olympic gold medal in 1996 Olympics and won the World Champions in Triathlon in 2004. Currently, she is teaching swim clinics around the world and has coached swimmers for 2 decades and still going strong. One of her greatest attributes, I think it's what I saw when I took one of her clinics, was the perseverance and her patience to work with someone. There was a lot of different things going on at the time, and it just kind of was an easy transition to learn on some things that I was working on, but also help other people at the same time. So welcome to the show, Sheila. How are you doing today?
Thanks. I'm doing really well, you two. It's exciting to be on your show.
Thank you for coming on. Yeah.
So one of the reasons why I wanted you on was to actually talk a little bit about your history and find out, maybe you could tell the listeners a little bit about how you became an Olympian, what it was like to be one, and currently coaching others.
I didn't ever, first of all, I'll just say I never grew up thinking I'd go to the Olympics. That wasn't on my radar. I'm pretty small. I'm 5'2.5", and in the sport of swimming, that's not one of the qualities you really want physically necessarily to excel. But the beautiful thing about swimming is there are time standards. And so as a young athlete, if you're not someone who has the confidence to dream of the Olympics, you can dream of that step. That's just one step above where you are currently. Like if I was a B level swimmer, I might want to try to get the A level cuts, and then the double A, which would be state level. So I look at my kind of journey or road to the Olympics literally as the steps on a staircase. Like the analogy we do here truly does represent the journey I took. And I also think sometimes that I got to a landing on a staircase and I hung out at that landing for a while and didn't take steps. I got kind of really comfortable at that level and then could climb again. So I made my first Olympic team at what you would think of as a late age. At age 27 was my first Olympic team. And I guess either I was a slow learner or just the perseverance that you mentioned. I loved sports. And so I just kept learning little by little, and got to enjoy going to 4 Olympic Games, which there's luck in that as well, or a blessing, to stay healthy. And I learned a lot along the way. So now I enjoy coaching people and kind of sharing the things, and including things like, how do you get through the rough days when you're performing like crap and you just want to quit? We all experience that. And what does go through the mind of someone who's gone to the Olympics? I mean, many times my coach had to bail me out and say, come on, you're going to be okay. Other times I just gritted my teeth. And so that's fun when I'm in a clinic with people to share that stuff.
Yeah. One of the things I was wondering now is a lot of times the athlete's mind is very helpful. And as we get older, we really need to have that kind of athletic perseverance, that ability to just take one day at a time, as you talked about it, and able to work through some of the stresses that we have through our bodies and how our mental pathways kind of may bring us down, or something's really bothering us. And as you've, like you said, been on different staircases and kind of seen little plateaus of change. How is that for you now, and seeing your athletes do the same thing, kind of moving through life and changing a little bit by little bit, and how does that affect you and what you kind of provide with them?
I mean, I think it gives them peace, and I think they trust it because I can just smile at them and say, hey, we're working on this skill right now. And I'm a very honest coach, and you didn't do it that time, but it doesn't bother me that you didn't do it. Even if you don't do it the second time or the 10th time, it doesn't matter, because here's what I know. I know that you're going to get it, and I don't care when you get it. So you have to just relax and let it come. So that other guy over there, he might get it 5 minutes from now. You might get it 5 days from now. But, and I've experienced both. I've had success when I tried to acquire a skill where I learned one particular skill quickly, and another one, it just didn't click. And you have to just, what's that saying? There's a time for everything, and everything in time. And so telling them that isn't just something we say to ourselves, it's something we believe, because I've witnessed it happen in my own life and with athletes I coach. And so I believe it. And then I think they can smile and say, okay. So we end up having fun. I'm like, for goodness sakes, this is just sport. So this is supposed to be a healthy stress, not a negative stress. Let's remember that. We have enough negative stresses in our life.
Definitely.
Right.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
We take life really seriously, and when we take some big accomplishment like getting to the Olympics or putting some kind of big carrot out there that if I get that will establish something inside me, then it kind of gets to like a target fixation, right? The wheels might fall off, things might not be where you want to be, but you're so focused that you can't see what's around you. And to be a balanced athlete, you have to kind of take in, how is all this integrating in our lives, and how is it helping me progress as a human, not just a performance athlete.
That's absolutely right. And I think I was very fortunate. My college coaches at University of Georgia, they still coach there today. And then I got there as a freshman in 1987. And I still remember what they used to say to the people on the team is, you're not a swimmer. You're Sheila, and you swim. And there is a big difference. Swimming is just one part of your life. It's integrated into your life, but you are a student, you are a daughter, you are a friend, you are, someone who loves animals. You're so many things. Swimming is one of them. So I think when we're athletes, we tend to put all that weight on our shoulders, like everything that I do in the sport defines who I am. Or, what I do in the sport defines everything I am. And it's so not true.
Yeah, that's awesome that you got that taught early in your life. And
Yeah.
even though you said
used
that,
that.
considered what they would say about being older when you started, I think the maturity level probably helped a lot too, in terms of, a 19-year-old trying to take in that information may not have really understood all that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it just depends how the guys, if the people telling you really believe it. And I think they were, yeah.
Yeah. It's important for an athlete to hear that, because if you attach too much to that, to being what you are as an athlete, and then you fail as an athlete, or you mess up, or or you have to retire at some point, then your personal like who you are is or your identity is tied to that. And it can be a very traumatic time to actually shed that, and that part of you dying, and moving on to the next stage in life. So I think that that is really amazing that someone, your coach, had the foresight to see that and to share that with you, because I think that more coaches need, or really should do that, and help athletes realize, like, there are a lot of other things that are important in life, and to who you are, and you're not just that athlete doing that sport. That's not who you are, but that's what you get a lot of recognition for. So then we tend to identify with that, and we become performers in life. And then for me personally, I just kind of started performing all the time, and then I kind of lost myself within that. So that's a really great point to be made as an athlete. We learn a lot of great things from athletics, but we have to sometimes learn how to find ourselves after we practice, or even after we retire that sport. And it sounds like that's what you've done, Sheila, in your life, and you've written a book about swimming. And do you want to tell us a little bit more about what inspired you to write this book?
Yeah. as I competed, I've been a swimmer in the sense of that's the sport that I know the details of the sport, and then I went into triathlon and saw that people who didn't come from swimming background in that sport were being led down a certain road to believe that, okay, you can be fast at swimming by doing this one simple thing, something very simple as gliding. And I'm like, okay, I know swimming to be totally different than that. And I saw a lot of people being frustrated that they weren't getting faster. And I just wanted to introduce the things that I had known about swimming and say, I think there's more to it than this simple thing of just gliding. And it's a complex three-dimensional sport. It's a beautiful sport. And let's dive into the I call it the deep blue, or the third dimension, and talk about all that goes on down there and try to start to master this complex activity. So it was just a passion because I saw people working so hard, but not really seeing the results of their hard work. And that frustrated me for them. I'm like, oh my God, they deserve to do so much better. Plus I didn't like the, kind of the paradigm, the commonly held belief that, well, hey, if you started the sport at age 40, I mean, what do you expect? You're never going to learn it. I said, why? That's wrong. If we have great coaching and we give people the right cues, why couldn't somebody who's age 40 or 50 do the mechanics really nicely? And, maybe they don't have the power, the endurance, because they can't train 4 hours a day, but they
Yeah.
be able to do the technique and mechanics really well. So that was the other big passion that I had for writing it.
And that's really amazing because so many people over 40 start swimming, right? To get, I mean, why not just enhance your performance in that area? I think that's an excellent idea and a great problem to solve for people. So, and a book is not easy to write, and your book is very detailed and goes into really specific exercises that are really crucial for enhancing the performance of a swimmer. So I thought you did an amazing job with that.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
You open your computer to a blank screen and you're like, okay, I got to write the first word. Quite a process.
Yeah, that is a hard one. I mean, writer's block is no joke, and even just coming up with a concept of what you want to write about, like that's takes a lot of energy to sit there and go, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to write it. And then when you sit down and look at something, you're like, wait, is that really what I want to do? Like.
Yeah. The good thing, what happened, I think it was by accident for me, was I had about 3 different book ideas in mind. Okay, maybe I'll write about the journey to the Olympics and write some book on, experiences, or maybe I'll write a book on confidence, and maybe I'll write this book on swimming. And so I started, actually, when I opened up that blank screen, I kind of played around with each of those topics, and you find where you quickly find, not quickly, but relatively quickly, like within the first week maybe of doing that, where you find your voice and which one starts to take off. The other ones just kind of hit a wall. And the swimming book was the one where I just found my voice. I did some research and found Johnny Weissmuller as my historical figure, who was my thread for the whole message I wanted to send. And so I always tell people, if you're going to want to write a book too, just sit down at first and just whatever you're interested in regards to that book, whatever your message is, start researching what's on that already. And you'll discover things you didn't even know were out there that start to build your own vision of what you want to share with readers. So it's actually a really enjoyable process.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That's nice to know, because
it is.
Alice and I tell each other we're going to write one, and we're like, okay, each time our topic changes.
Well, we're still working on it. Yeah, it's a work in progress.
We're like, yeah, let's talk about. Oh, okay, let's talk about this one. Oh, yeah, okay.
I suppose that's why we have the podcast, because we're switching gears constantly. But
it's okay though. We'll get it. We'll one day get into that. One of the things you talked about, Allison, and that was about swimming at an older age. And I've noticed with just learning a little about helping people with fear of water, and how much I find it is an incredible journey to be with someone who progresses in the water from a point of literally not being able to get into a pool, and looking out down a lane and saying, oh my God, I can't get down there. I have such petrifying fear. I can't I have maybe a trauma that kind of caused this, or maybe when I was younger or something. And I don't know, do you ever get to work with some of those that you kind of just amaze you and the ability to help someone progress so much into just being able to swim?
Well, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's the thing I admire most about, I guess, people who go into triathlon, or even if they're not doing it to go into a triathlon, but they're doing it just to tackle that fear, or literally learn a life-saving skill, because swimming can be a life-saving skill. So whatever the reason somebody might be taking on swimming and they never had to that point, I think that's the most brave, wonderful, awesome thing. So we typically see people once they've overcome that. So it's people like you, Maya, who work with maybe the people at that beginning stage. And then if they end up, really enjoying it and start to want to get competitive, I tend to see people once they're already moving up and down the lane and they're like, okay, I want to maybe get faster now. So I don't get the joy of taking them from really not even being able to put their toes in the water to seeing them navigate the deep end, or, somewhere they can't touch. That would be incredible. I think people are doing an awesome job on that. We are very fortunate. So many skilled people in that. I literally wrote the book I wrote and do the clinics I do because I saw then where the gap was later on in people's swimming careers, where I said, okay, we need to do a better job on making them faster if they want to get faster. So I can still appreciate those journeys just by watching coaches like you take them through those points. And I hear the stories and love it. It makes me like tear up when I hear these stories. And it's the best part of swimming is that journey.
Yeah. Well, I guess then tell us a little bit about a journey of someone who impressed you in terms of like really wanted to get fast and really exceeded in that dream. Do you have a story that you can kind of tell us what happened with someone?
I don't, there's not like one person who I'm like, oh, that story really stands out. There's a whole bunch of super fun stories, and I'm so blessed to get emails regularly. Like one woman took a clinic, and when she came to the clinic, she told me she was in lane 1 of her master's group. And lane 1 was where the people who hadn't been swimming, they were the least experienced. All the way over to lane 6 was, the people who swam in high school and college. They were the fastest of the group. So she goes, I've been swimming for 2 years and I haven't gotten out of lane 1. And so she took my clinic, and then like a month later, she sends an email saying, thank you very much, Sandy. And then underneath her name, she wrote lane 2. So there's nothing monumental. It's like little stories like that, or a lot of people write saying, hey, I never could get under 10 minutes for the 500, and I just did 3 of them in practice at 9:15s. And they'll write, like I just got that email a week ago, a guy saying, I know that a 9:15 is not super fast for a 500, but for me it is. And so things like that, I get numerous emails that really just make my day, and I do get the occasional email where someone, like I just had my first dream 2 weeks ago where I saw somebody who took one of my clinics, and I saw them like, I don't know, a couple months after the clinic, and they're like, that was the worst clinic ever. I got a lot slower after the clinic. And this is like, I've never had a dream like this before. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Dream. And it was the next day I got an email from a high school girl who had just taken my clinic. She'd taken it 2 weeks prior and then had a big state championship 2 weeks after the clinic, and she didn't add time, but she didn't drop any time. She did this time, and she had really hoped to drop a bunch. So I was like, oh, she just, what did I do wrong?
Oh, that's awesome.
Like every day I wake up and just read emails that just make my day every day.
Right. Well, Sheila, can you share with our audience like some really, maybe the 3 biggest tips you could give people to start off, other than buying your book, of course? But if they were just, to start off to get faster, or they're working towards a triathlon, their first triathlon competition, where would you tell them to start, or what are your best tips for that? Just, or it doesn't have to be 3, it can be more than that, but.
And this is like just in the swimming angle of it?
In the swimming, yeah, exactly.
I always tell people pole path underneath us. The pole is the most complex part of the swim stroke, because it's three-dimensional. Number one, you've got a fore aft component to water, you've got a lateral component to water, and you've got a depth component to water. And now in your arm, you've got a wrist joint, an elbow joint, and you got a shoulder joint. And so it never ceases to amaze me all the different things people do on those three dimensions with their three joints.
Right. Yeah.
Various phases of the stroke. And so I tell them, this is where the bulk of your potential really is. If you were just to study photos of the underwater pole path that Olympic swimmers make, because it's very doable. It's just that there's, maybe there's 10 details to the pole. 10 details to the pole. In one regard, that's a lot, and it can seem overwhelming. And I say, sure, that is a lot. But in another regard, it is a finite number, so it is manageable. So take it. So my biggest advice would be, if you have a passion to, do this, it's totally doable, and just chip away at it piece by piece, because know that it's complex, but doable complex. If you don't feel like you have to learn it in a weekend, you will make progress towards certain things in the weekend, but to get the whole scope of it, it could take months and seasons, and just enjoy that process. And then specifically along those lines of, the technique, all sport to me, and at least all the sports I've done, other than fencing, which I just got destroyed in fencing when I did pentathlon, but, and I'm sure this is a part of fencing as well, but all sports have acceleration to them. Your limb speed must change. And so in the swimming stroke, you don't want to pull with one hand speed. You got to accelerate in action. And so you have to have a dynamic energy. And it's almost like at the hospital where you see when someone's on the machine, and like, you don't want to see a flat line, because that means you're dead. You got to see the bleeps, the ups and downs. And that's, that represents sport to me as impulse, and that's life, and that's dynamicism. So put a little, it's limb speed change. You got to remember the delta sign. The delta in life is critical, and so that you don't stay monotone. And so, when you're swimming, try to finish the stroke with a little more flair than, when you're at the front of the stroke. It's more patient, and then build it to an accelerated dynamic finish, and then you'll get thrust forward in the water. So
that's really great. Thank you. Yeah. And what are you feel like people that you coach, their biggest challenges, or people that contact you about your book? What do you feel like some of their biggest challenges with swimming are?
It's time in the water. A lot of people are adults who I see, that about 80% of the people I see are adults, and they've got children and jobs and homes, and they're busy and they're tired, and they're trying their best to get to the pool. So there's actually a really neat strength training tool that I put in my books. It's just a simple tool, like $30. It costs $30. It's a set of tubing. And I say, if you can't make it to the pool, you can work the endurance of the pole path and the mechanics of the pole path, just hooking it up to a doorknob in your home. Yeah. So people who have time limitations can still, do something to help their swimming at home for 10 minutes,
Yeah. That's a great point. Time. Everybody, that's a limit for most people. And I really did like the tubing idea you put in the book, because something anybody can do anywhere, basically, and you could take it with you on trips too. So
yeah. You got it. And it truly was to me, the competitive advantage that put me on the Olympic team, in the sense that I always think that, okay, I was a contender to make the Olympic team. And because I did tubing, I was a contender who squeaked on the Olympic team. I really honestly believe if I had not done tubing, I would have been a contender to make it, but I would have been one of those ones who just missed it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it's just that kind of competitive edge.
And was that something that you decided to do, or is that something that your coach said, you must do this?
I don't know why. It was me. To answer you straight up, it was me. And I don't know why I did it at age 15. I never had a coach tell me to do it, but I had a set of tubing hooked to my doorknob. Oh, wow. The lights just went out in the room I'm in.
Are they like automatic or something?
I guess so.
They're on a timer.
It must be like a sensor.
Wait, but it went on.
Gotta be moving.
Maybe it's a sensory oriented. Remember, we edit, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
It's
that's
all
right.
right. No worries. Actually, this is totally great. Um,
So you were saying,
you were talking about how you found the idea for the tubing and when you were
yeah.
15.
I started doing it at age 15. I did it all the way through my last Olympics, which was at age 39. So I don't know why I started though, but it was in my bedroom door, hooked onto my closet doorknob, and my parents never knew about it, and they certainly didn't tell me to do it. My coach never told me, but I did. Before I'd go to bed every night, I pulled 3 times 50 pulls, and then I'd get into bed and go to bed. And I don't know why I did it. I just, it's weird. I can't even remember who told me about it, how I got the set.
What age
Yeah.
did you start swimming?
I was about 6 years old when I just started the year-round like YMCA team. The summer club, we probably started at age 4 or 5. We belonged to that summer stuff in Michigan. But year-round YMCA, 6 years old.
Wow. And so by age 15, what were you really looking for? You said you didn't really think about Olympics, but what were you college or something that
Yep,
you wanted to swim in college?
it was college. Yep, that was absolutely it. I saw the girls on my high school team, a couple of them go swim in college, and that was my huge dream. Where will I swim in college? Yeah.
Oh, wow. And so is it at Georgia you swam? And did you swim somewhere else or did you stay at Georgia for all 4 years?
Stayed at Georgia for all 4 years. Yeah. And I stayed there for graduate school as well.
And you swam through their whole collegiate time there too, or
Well,
no?
undergrad, you when you do 4 years, you're at NCAA eligibility only. You're allowed 4 years only, and so then I stayed there for grad school, but I couldn't compete for Georgia. You're allowed to train with their team still, since I was now a postgraduate athlete. You can get in the water and train with them. The NCAA allows a certain number of postgraduates to swim, but you don't go to the meets and whatnot. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then from there, did you move back to Michigan, or what was the transition from there to you starting getting into the Olympics? Because on your website it talks about how you had gotten your master's and I guess were starting to work, and then you kind of were doing night and day kind of your own workouts and stuff. So can you tell a little about that transition part from when you
Yeah.
were coaching?
When I was at Georgia, the Olympics are every 4 years, the Summer Olympics, of course. So you have the winter interspersed every 2 within that. But anyway, so 1988 was my first Olympic experience, Olympic trials. I was 19 years old and a freshman at Georgia. And I didn't make the team. I wasn't expected to. I didn't come close. And then I finished college, undergraduate, and I had been getting better. And I thought, wow, the 1992 Olympic trials, are just 1 year away, because I graduated in 91. I thought, oh, I'm getting better. And I remember thinking, I don't think I'm good enough to make the Olympic team. But if these 10 girls got sick, I could maybe make the Olympic. That was seriously my thinking. I'm like, that's worth it. I think I'll stay in for an extra year since I'm getting better. Maybe I'll get lucky. And so I went to the 92 Olympic trials at age 23. And I hadn't started grad school yet. So I was in between my undergrad and grad school years. Those 10 girls didn't get sick. I didn't make the finals. I didn't make the Olympic team. And it was time to hang up my suit, really, and move on. But I still just had this feeling, I'm getting better. And what is it? I'm close to these girls. What am I missing? I don't feel like it's my height. It can't be that. There's something else. And I went to my college coaches and asked them, what do you think? 1996, should I maybe try for it? And they were the ones to say, I had scholarship money from the NCAA and the SEC, the Southeastern Conference. They said, you've got this scholarship money to get your grad school paid for. Your education is going to carry you through life. So go to grad school and then decide. So I did my grad studies. That was 2 years later. Now I've got 2 years till 1996. I was 25 years old, and I'm like, okay, do I go for it or not? And I went back to my college coaches. I said, what do you think? They were the ones to say, move home and get a job. It's not that we don't believe in you. We don't want you to take this the wrong way, but you've got to move forward with your career. You can swim before and after work, but we know you. You are somebody, and they were the same coaches I said earlier in this interview, who always reminded us, you're not a swimmer. You are Sheila, and you have a career ahead of you and a life other than swimming. And that's how you're going to be happy. is doing that. And a happy athlete is a fast athlete.
Mm.
And so that's why I said, you're right. And I moved home to Michigan, got a full-time salaried job, and started looking for places to train that I could train before and after work. So that's how that happened, was my coaches really giving great advice.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's incredible you were able to do that.
You know, I
have
trusted
a
them.
full-time job and be an Olympic athlete at the same time.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, with a single sport, you can do that. I think, swimming is just a single sport. With triathlon or pentathlon, other multi-sport, then it gets exponentially harder. I didn't work full-time when I did triathlon and pentathlon.
Yeah, but the mentality, that what we were talking about in the beginning of the show, is there is a perseverance that you had to have to go to work, go swim, then go to work, and then go swim again every day until the 1996 Olympics. I mean, that drive is very crucial to getting a motivation to kind of give yourself that sense of like, this is worth doing all the time, because people wake up in the morning and they're like, they're so exhausted, or they, you have to miss out on certain things because you have a commitment to yourself about what you think you might be wanting to do. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, I mean, I look back on that time in my life, because now that's 20 years ago, a little more than 20 years ago. And I think, how did I do that? Because today I don't feel like I could do that. I mean, I guess I do it with the books and stuff. Like when I go to write a book, I say, okay, I'm going down to Mexico for 3 months, and I will write for 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. So when I commit to something, I guess I have that personality that just knows, if you're going to commit, then commit. And I can stay pretty focused, but it doesn't mean that it's easy by any means. And there's many days that I was like, what am I doing? And I have an Italian temper as well, and I'd have my hormonal days where I'd be like, I quit, Some days my coach, like, he was just amazing in Michigan. Some days he knew you've just worked really hard, and you do have to know when to rest. So some days he'd say, go home, and I don't even want to see you back here for 3 more days to the pool. You've worked so hard for a month straight that you need to adapt to all that hard work now. Go just see movies with your friends. Don't even think about swimming. And, and he was right, because I did truly love the sport, and I did truly want to do it. But that doesn't mean there aren't days where you hate it and you want to quit it, and so you have to know what to do on those days. Sometimes he would say, stay here, just get back in the water. Don't look at the clock. Don't look at your times. Let's just work on something, that you could leave here saying, oh, I became a better swimmer today because I streamlined off the wall, and so he taught me how to articulate, like, every workout I could leave and say how I became better, even if it wasn't my fastest, most incredible workout of my life, And the other thing he reminded me of that was amazing was, he said, picture yourself when you're 80 years old and you look back at this time in your life. Do you think you'll have regretted that you didn't do this? And I always knew, if I quit, I think I'll look back and regret it. That I'll wonder, what if? And he also said, and what's the worst thing that can happen? If you stick with this and keep going, what's the worst that can happen? I'm like, well, I don't reach my goal. I once again go to Olympic trials and don't make the Olympic team. And everyone will laugh at me and say, why did you think you could make it? And he said, well, can you live with that? And I was like, yeah, I guess I could live with that. He's like, well, then if you can live with the worst thing that could happen, then
that's a great way to look at it. I love that. That sounds like a really great coach.
I did. My whole career, I've been so blessed with great coaches. Yeah. And that's fortune. That's just good fortune. I did nothing to earn that. And great parents too.
Well, and that's the part about what I was talking about, the athlete's mind, is if you have such good input from some really good mentors in your life, it actually sets you up to find that life is similar to that. Like, if you are well-rounded and you find that you are passionate about something and you want to follow it through, and then there's the struggles and the whole hero's journey that that is always talking about with I've lost his name. He's the writer of the book.
Campbell.
Thank you. It just was in front of my face, and then I went, whoop, gone.
If you guys write a book, you should do like Maya's words in red and then Allison's in green, and then we could just see where you finish each other's sentences.
That's what we do.
That's not a bad idea.
That actually is a good idea.
We'll
Yeah.
put that in there. But to go back to what I was saying was that symbolism is so streamed in our whole life about what we need to do to kind of deal with life in terms of how the struggles are real, how life is challenging, and that most of what we need to know is to have that parts of us are going to want to quit. There's parts of us that are going to want to keep going, and the balance of that, like how you're going to live your life based on all those things. And in this story, it sounds like a lot of what you've learned is help cultivate you as a person and not just an athlete.
Yeah, and along those lines, like a lot of people say, well, how did you swim in college even? Because studies are hard. And then some people make fun, well, Georgia's not like, a big university like Stanford. But I'm like, hey, wait a second,
It's pretty hard to get in now, isn't it?
We talk about how we wouldn't be able to get into it now.
Studies are hard no matter where you go. But this is the way I look at, let's say, a collegiate athlete environment. You've got your studies, you've got your sport, and then you've got to be a social person. This about social time too. And I always said, I can't do all three of those well. And so I tell young athletes, pick 2 out of the 3, because you can do 2 out of the 3 really well, but not 3 out of 3.
Right.
So you can either be like a jock who just likes to party and your grades are horrible.
That was me.
See, you did the other 2 really well, right?
I did. I had a really fun time.
And I chose to not party, but that actually suited me. So when people sit there and think, oh, you're so disciplined, I'm like, actually, my personality doesn't really like to go like out to the bars. I like to go to bed early, and I just don't apologize to anybody for that. Even in college, I'm like,
that's great.
Yeah, I don't want to be out till midnight. I want to crawl into my bed. I think the best place ever. I had like 2 kittens in college.
You're like that. That was comforting, and to know yourself like that is really a big deal in college. Actually,
it is. It's throughout your whole life. It's a big deal, but especially hard in college. And try to encourage people to say, don't think you don't have time for the studies and the sport. Just anyways, unless you really, and if you do enjoy being social, that's a big part of who you are, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Then
I love that. Like, not apologizing for who you are is an important step. Like, and to know what you like at the time. Like, you can always change. You could become either or. You could switch back, but if it really suits you, go with it. And just look at someone and say, yeah, you may not understand, but that's okay. This is like
about how we want to experience life too. I mean, the way I experienced life back then is definitely not how I want to experience it now. So, things change too. So, appreciating that and the experiences that we've had and where we were at that time. And that's always, it's good to, without regret,
Yeah, you can't have the regrets.
Yeah. So that's really great though, that but you knew what you wanted. It sounds like you were very focused, and that's how you became an Olympic athlete, it sounds like.
I guess so.
How it happens. It's the focus, really.
The focus and really good coaching. And
Well, the one thing I want to talk about is a little bit of the recovery from, like my background was I got into late life athletics. I mean, after college decided to do some running, and then I went into Ironman training, and I did about 10 years of that, 10 Ironmans in 8 years, and had this whole pack it in kind of construction there. And one of the things I learned that probably saved my life the most was the passion I had for recovery, and the reasons why recovery was so strong in me was there's another part of me that really thinks longevity is important, and longevity in terms of how I want to move my body when I'm 90 years old, if I get there, and how I can feel, because a lot of the stress of an endurance athlete, or even kind of all athletes, have a physiological change the body goes through because of what you do, and based on how well you give yourself nutrition, how well you practice meditations of some sort, whether or not it's just being by yourself or whatever. These things play into a big account of how well you're successful and everything else. And so do you recall like what you have like got from those coaches, or what you kind of found that kind of budded out of you with all this training about recovery, and how it is kind of influencing you as you get older in your life, and kind of seeing what you've done to kind of do a really good job in terms of perseverance through that?
Yeah, it's as vital as you're indicating. What you've just said it beautifully, and how important that is, and whatever form that is, whether it's nutrition or meditation, and I find sleep a huge part of that. I know some people have a hard time falling asleep, and so you have to learn how to, I guess, be able to do that. But I think that whereas I didn't have a lot of gifts in terms of physical stature, whatever, I think I did have a gift in terms of sensing, okay, my body just had a training effect. Like, there's a thing called a training effect, and you can, you push and push and push, and you start to feel the fatigue or the breakdown. And right when you start to sense that, you kind of have to know, okay, I can push maybe another 10% longer here, like, and really sear in that training effect. But then I've got to stop, because my body's gotten the message, and it now wants to absorb that message. And whether that's absorbing it through good nutritional replacement or sleep or mental relaxation, you all of the above, you find what you end up needing. And then also just like mental relaxation. Some people would meditate, other people would go like Allison said, if you're social, you might want to go out with your friends and have a drink at night, a glass of wine or a beer and whatnot, or cook a great meal. So it's vital. And I think a lot of people who haven't reached their goals, or they're seeing someone's better than them, they think they have to work harder, and they're going at it the wrong way, and it's hard to convince people sometimes the value of rest, or they just always stay so moderate in their training, because if you rest, then you'll be able to hit those really like intense sessions. And so rest also is like some days you have to do a session, but it can be a really easy low heart rate session. And I would look at easy sessions in one of two ways: either heart rate, sometimes you have to keep that really low, but so like a weightlifting workout, I could do a weightlifting workout and get a good strength, like build muscle strength, but not do anything fast and keep my heart rate low. Other times I could do like a high heart rate workout, but not stress my muscles. So I kind of looked at the training as heart rate training and then my muscle training. And so, I'm not a physiologist. I don't read about physiology. I talk about mechanics in swimming. This is all just the world according to Sheila's mind and how I looked at my training. But some days I would just say, I just need a little heart rate training, but I don't need to exert a ton of force on my muscles today. Other days I want my muscles to get a workout, but man, my heart rate needs a break. Other days were, let's combine the two. And that was like a power day. That's when you're just like, you're really high intensity anaerobic or lactate type workout. And then other days I just can't do anything, So I kind of looked at it 4 ways like that. But
do you find
taking time off?
Sheila, do you find like approaching it that way with that kind of awareness is better for your recovery? Do you feel like you recover faster that way, instead of just not listening to your body or your heart rate, or feeling or knowing which workout to really do that day, or just overriding that and doing something else?
You have to listen to your body.
Yeah,
absolutely. You have to. And that's hard for some people to start to do. I think anybody can learn to do it once they just start to try to think, okay, what am I feeling? And, are my muscles just so shredded today from that hard session, that hard track workout yesterday, that I cannot, I'm going to get a major running injury if I continue hard muscle work today. So I can do something very light, on the muscles, and, that kind of thing. Yeah, listen to your body.
Yeah.
It's the boss.
It's crucial. Yeah, I agree.
So, not a lot of people may know what a modern pentathlon is. Can you tell a little bit about that and what you learned about the different sports in that? Because swimming seemed to be your second nature, and then running and biking kind of comes with the triathlon field. But pentathlon is a whole other ballgame.
It really is. It's a fascinating sport. Well, the 5 sports within it are all awesome. Combining all 5 sports is, I don't even know how to describe that experience. I have little kids come up to me. I'm like, I don't think I recommend that one.
It's kind of challenging.
It was a exhausting couple of years, but it's all based on the skills that a cavalry soldier would need to possess during wartime back in the cavalry days.
Wow.
And it would be the skills you would need to either fight your enemy or escape your enemy. So the 5 sports are pistol shooting, fencing, swimming, equestrian show jumping,
Wow.
and then running. And so obviously the swimming, equestrian, show jumping, and running, those would all be means of escape during cavalry days. And then the pistol fighting and the fencing would be means of fighting. So its appearance in the Olympic Games was in 1912. It's one of the most early sports of the modern Olympic Games. And the founder of the modern Olympic Games is a Frenchman named Pierre de Coubertin, and he was the one who wanted this sport created and put in the Olympics to highlight the skills of the ultimate 19th century cavalry soldier. So that's
Wow.
a little bit of its background. And then our most famous U.S. pentathlete was General Patton from World War II, and he competed in 1912 Olympics. I think it was 1912. Yeah, he got 5th place, and it's got a really rich, neat history.
I didn't know that.
How in the world did you get that as your next idea?
I know.
I mean, I can see, you could do swimming, but really, that's 4 other things that are
That's a
really
lot.
complicated.
Yeah.
I had the swimming and the running because I had the running from
the right.
triathlon. Yeah, so I hadn't ever held a gun. I didn't even know what a fencing uniform looked like or how the game worked, and then I've never been on a horse. But the pentathlon committee kind of approached me, and they like to recruit swimmer runners and then try to teach the other sports. No one is going to come from all 5 sports background, so you have to pick, okay, which backgrounds do you want to pull from and then teach the other sports. And so a lot of people kind of make fun of, like, okay, let's say somebody came from fencing and maybe their swim technique and their swim time is not so great. Well, I came from swimming and my fencing stunk, so there's always going to be something that you feel like an idiot doing, and you try your best to acquire those skills. It's a really fascinating, fun challenge in a way, and horrifying, like just horribly exhausting, because you never feel like
I can imagine it would be.
you never feel you train any of them enough.
Say that again.
You never feel like you train any of them enough.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I see. I would think it would be impossible really to get good at all of them, because I mean, and maybe that's the appeal of it, that you're really trying something you're not great at, but it's fun, right? And
you got it.
Well,
it is. So it is a beautiful sport if you can juggle all that,
Fencing and equestrian, I mean, those are really complicated. I mean, not only just because they're something that take a long time to work, but they're very mind oriented. Like you have to kind of strategize, and then you have a horse that you have to blend with. Like you have to become one with them to kind of work with all that. So that those in general are just harder in terms of like how to kind of do those things. I mean, I know some equestrian riders, and the idea of them going to like a high champion equestrian rides or whatever, their goals are amazing, and the years that they've put into just doing that. I always listen to her talking about it, and I'm like, oh, you've been doing it for so long and you still feel this is not, like, certain things are not working, like a horse can get injured, or and you put all that time in something like that. So it's amazing. I found it fascinating that you even tried and did actually pretty well, right? You didn't do terrible, right? I mean,
equestrian ended up going well. I won the equestrian at the Olympics, but in fencing, I was dead last. And second to dead last was like this much. You can't even like see it in the screen. This much ahead of me. I mean, not just this much ahead of me. It was like that much. But, so I'd experienced the highs and the lows. But what I really learned to appreciate was the complexity of all sports and the challenge of all of them. Because a lot of times you'll say, oh, people try and say, well, swimmers are the most fit athletes, or runners, marathon running is the most, and everybody has this competition. I said, hey, if you want to get really good at something, like your friends who are in equestrian, if you really want to be the best you can be, no sport is any easier or any harder than the other. The intricacies are, yep, there may be different types of challenges in each one, but if you gave me a choice, which one do you want to do now at age 49? I'd say, oh my God, they're all hard. No.
That's awesome. Well, that's what happened to triathlons, right? It was a bunch of people sitting around comparing who was a swimmer, biker, runner, and who decided that was the best. And that's where they came up with the sport. And, look at it now, right? It's, this biggest phenomenon for the weekend warrior to become an athlete on the weekends and really doing an exceeding amount of mileage, especially if you go into the Ironman versions, and and it's an accomplishment in itself just to do 3 sports, because a lot of people are coming from one sport and then they combined it, and then you got to learn to transition from those times. So
now, the closest I've ever come to that is being a gymnast and having 4 events. I mean, that's kind of a similar thing, each event is very challenging in its own way. But I can't imagine. I feel like that, riding a horse, shooting a gun, and being a fencer. Is that, I don't know how you say it, being a fencer, I guess. And I mean, those are very specialized skills, and not to mention the swimming, of course, you have that, and then you said running was in that challenge as well. So running I've trained so many people in running, and it's a challenge. That's still a challenge for people. Yeah. So that's amazing to me that you were able to even just do that. I mean, that's just incredible. So
what did you like?
I think I learned something, but I think I also got insane from it, but no, it's all.
What did you like about the shooting? Like that, some interesting, the precision that you have to have for shooting. Did you find that was kind of fun for you, or did you?
Yeah, I liked going to the shooting workouts too, because it was a whole different, you almost had to be like that type B personality versus everything else. You could be a little more type A. So I had to be a whole different person. Like my coach used to say, you are different characters, like in like if you're in a movie and you're playing different characters. When you go to shooting, you have to be a different character than when you go to fencing. And so you had to try and be somebody different in a way. And that was really challenging for me, but I loved trying to be that and seeing if I could control that. Because I mean, many times I had to work very hard on this, and I controlled it to some degree, but I could feel the anxiety when I'd be, in a competition shooting, and it would start in the back of my neck, and it would go over the back of my skull. Then the anxiety chemicals would come over the top of my skull, and then in the front of my forehead, and they would just plant themselves like.
Well, I don't know. We're sure where we left off.
Okay. Well, I think. See, where was Sheila talking about when she dropped off? Do you remember? Talking about the energy coming down.
Oh yeah, your head. When you were,
and then you got shut off. But
that's gonna be a great segue.
Yeah. By the way,
this is what it really happened to her. Everything went black.
This is what it feels like exactly.
Yeah.
Function.
So let's move on to I had another question about your injuries and how you recovered with those, and how your body kind of adapted to becoming from that kind of endurance lifestyle, or training and stuff like that. How do you merge that into your life now, and what do you do to keep yourself fit? What do you do to help yourself recover, and what do you do to help with injuries that you may have contributed to that?
When I was actually training, I was injury free when it came to swimming, and but then running, there's just the opposite. I always had shin splints or some little, like groin tightness or something, and I was constantly having to sit out from run workouts. That was very frustrating, and I don't know why. I tried everything with all different trainers, and people trying to fit me with different shoes and orthotics, and maybe it's just the way my body was made. But all I could do was when the body was injured, not do the activity that injured it, and try to, just enjoy the things you could do, even if that meant, okay, well, now I have more time to read a book. I'm going to enjoy that. So accepting, what you can and can't do. And if you try and force your body, ignore the injury and you try to keep running on it, you're not doing yourself any favors. So I was very good, I think, at accepting the injuries. Nowadays, if I feel any weirdness, like I'm 49 years old, and I can't run even 3 times a week. Once I can handle, maybe twice where I wouldn't have something hurting me. And that's not because I wake up, I have no pain. I have no injuries right now. But if I was to continue running, I would get injuries even just from light jogging now. So I run maybe once a week now on average. And then swimming is the thing I try to do. I live in a place where there's a pool right nearby. So I try to go 3 times a week to swim. And really, honestly, my goal is to make sure my jeans fit. That's truly my athletic goal. Yeah. They get over the same pair of jeans that I wore, where they still go over my thighs. So, I'm not in the same fitness that I was, but I almost think I'm healthier, because when you train too much, I think you get a little emaciated, and, you have to be at your race weight. So I like being about 10 pounds heavier. I just feel healthier with a little extra weight. So
yeah, I feel the same way, actually. Yeah.
Do you feel like you experienced any hormonal changes as you were, going into because your span, it hits right at the time where, life changes for women quite a bit. And did you notice any of that when
in
you
terms
were?
of my cycle, I had that like every single month, like clockwork. So I didn't notice anything like some female athletes get amenorrhea, and I never experienced that. Because my last Olympics, I was 39 years old. So I wasn't quite hitting true midlife, the real hormonal changes, but I was beginning to experience little things here and there. And I just, I always felt like if I didn't get my cycle, that meant something was wrong, that I was overtraining. So that was always really healthy and normal on me. Now it's way worse than what it was. I definitely am impacted by hormones, and it's hard to learn how to control when they literally take you like a WWF wrestler. And so I had that when I trained, to a degree, not like I do now. So, but when I trained, I just have to go easier on those days. And my coaches were once again great. They were sensitive to knowing that I would be really sensitive on certain days. So yeah, I was like emotionally sensitive. I didn't want them like criticizing me if I didn't have a great workout, but they never would have, so I was very lucky in that sense. But hormones are real and they're crazy. And at 49, they're way worse for me than they were at 39. And I'm trying to learn every day. It's a good
We all are, I think.
Yeah. That's one of the things we try to give is information that we've learned through our own journeys of being an athlete as a woman, and what it's like to turn 40 and have these different experiences, because some of the things that people talk about is well, yeah, you were younger and that's probably why you did so well, but when you're an older athlete, there's some things that need to connect the dots to why you were good at what you did. And like I said, for myself, I contributed it to my passion for recovery. And now what we're trying to give is information that wasn't really it's pretty much heresy to what the establishment is talking about right now, but it has changed my life incredibly. I know Allison has talked about her version, but mostly what I realize is how much I feel so much better by changing the diet and doing things that I never did before, and keeping my hormonal balance in check. And so
and radical change. I mean, these are radical in the nutrition field, and it's so funny why they're radical, because they don't really sound radical, like drinking milk. That's radical, right? Because nobody recommends to drink milk anymore, is recommended to do that. But just like simple things that we're kind of coming back to, that actually really nutrient dense foods, as simple as that, even just to help your body make the progesterone, like the youth steroid hormones that you had when you were younger and that you no longer have so much of when you get over 40. We're just trying to get our body to produce those hormones again. And that's, to me, key. But the information is not out there, and not a lot of people know, and athletes don't know. It's a part of the recovery process.
Mm.
Yeah, and they just prescribe drugs and everything to everybody. But
Yeah.
it's so funny you say milk. I have always loved milk, and I can't believe I buy milk today. Not like giant amounts of it, but just certain days I'm like, I have got to drink milk. Like I just crave,
Yeah.
and that's all I want. But and then I'm not great with nutrition, but definitely like on days that I exercise, I crave foods that I think are really healthy foods. And if I don't exercise at this age, then I don't really crave anything. And that almost makes me feel depressed that my body doesn't even want or need anything. So I think that being fit, trying to do something like to exert your body, helps you to want the right nutrition too.
I think
Mm.
so. I think that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And we talk about that because I think there's what I hear you say is talking about the nervous system needs that in neuron pathway. And the neuron pathway is a practice of some sort. So whether you choose yoga or you choose swimming or you choose whatever your passion is, that neuron pathway is getting reactivated over and over again. And you create that stimulation that actually affects your vision, your vestibular, all the parts of the body. And so nutrition is the fuel to keeping that nervous system from crashing and shutting the body down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know where strength training comes into that in terms of what you've studied, but I have not been doing a good job lifting weights, and I sense that's a big thing missing in my
Well, and that's
just.
a very valuable I mean, muscle building, and we talk about this sometimes, is as women get older, as we get after, 40 and even 50 more so, we tend to lose muscle mass. And that's a big reason why a lot of women become estrogen dominant. And we don't want to become estrogen dominant. So if you don't want to become estrogen dominant, definitely build muscle. And one of the best ways to do that is, of course, lifting weights. Moderate muscle building is totally acceptable. You don't have to go crazy. You don't have to do a HIIT class. But you also, drinking milk and eating fruit and, eating the right carbohydrates actually are gonna support muscle building for women.
You seem to have this innate knowing that is probably one of the gifts that you probably just right now probably have like a better awareness as you're getting older, but to have that knowing that you're paying attention to your body is so important. Like from the stories that you've told, it seems that it was just set in pattern that you would always listen and always take in account. And and that's so important because people have lost that. And one of the things we try to establish is to get rid of this self-helplessness that people have gotten into because they don't know how to decipher what's going on in terms of how health field has been telling them, the medical field is telling them what they're doing is right or wrong for them, because they don't have discernment anymore because there's so much input. And from somewhere inside, you seem to have that ability, or you kept that ability within you to say, I know what I need and I'm going to go with it. I'm not going to compromise.
Yeah, I've never had this type of discussion with anybody, but I think you're absolutely right. When you're saying that, I'm agreeing, saying, yeah. And things that have really struck me have been things like a book that I read where it talks about a craftsperson. And a craftsperson is someone who really understands their domain, and they're not so easily sold on things. Like, let's say someone says, you have to discard that older thing and you have to take this newer, better thing. But the craftsperson will say, well, wait a second, this is perfectly serviceable. And I'm not going to discard something that's perfectly serviceable just in this relentless pursuit of the new thing that you're trying to sell me. And so just even when I read things like that, it makes such a great sense to me on a deep level that I love books like that. And I love coming across info, and that just reinforces, yeah, don't just believe everything someone tells you or go chasing this and chasing that. Just get to know yourself and, slow down and we do. We get so much info. We chase it and chase it and chase it. And the technology is trying to tell us everything instead of, why don't you take your own heart, feel your own, exertion levels here.
Seriously.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we have Fitbits now that do that for us. And I refuse to get one of those, actually.
Yeah, I don't
I
either.
You know what the funniest thing is?
Yeah.
That most people lose them.
Oh,
The
really?
gym is full of
Yeah.
them. People lose
Oh.
Fitbits like crazy. It's like you could collect Fitbits. They're just all over the gym. Like literally, they just fall off, or they put them in the shower, and then they're like coming
Yeah.
back. And we have like a whole storage of Fitbits. I'm like,
that's
okay, I
funny.
guess they're so helpful,
Yeah.
Is there any other questions you had, Allison?
No, I think we got through a lot, and I liked kind of what we wrapped up with, because that seemed to because I mean, that's why, Sheila, we want to have you on the show, because we really want to have really good role models for people, of women and men even over 40, who are living an active life, but also knowing how to recover and stay healthy, and to some extent youthful in their experience of that. So we thank you for coming on and sharing your story and your experience of being in the Olympics and recovering. Being in the Olympics at 39, that's incredible. I mean, that's just really incredible to me to think about that. So, I mean, yeah,
she was in the Olympics with kids, so she had
that,
the kids at 39.
God. even more impressive. So yeah, but thank you, Sheila. And if you can do our audience a great service and tell everybody about where they can find your book, and where they can find your website, and all that, and maybe the next workshop you have coming up.
Is there anything
so you guys probably have this, but the book about 2 weeks ago came off the press, The Swim Speed Secrets. It's the second edition of it. So this one's just on freestyle. I have other books by Velo Press. They're an awesome endurance sports publisher.
Nice.
And I've got books on all 4 strokes and whatnot. But you can go to the Velo Press website, velopress.com, and they have all their books there, talking about everything from nutrition to yoga to marathon running and triathlons, in my swimming books, and a bunch of cycling books. And then also my website is just sheilat.com. So SHEILAT.com. And there's links to buy the books there, and also the schedule of where I'm going to be doing clinics. Some of them are private team clinics, but others are going to be open registration. So I'd love to see some of your listeners. If I get a chance to meet them, that'll be great. And I thank you too for having me on your show. It's awesome what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for your patience with my technology issues that I have.
It happens to the best of us,
We learned to be really patient, because we tried everything failed. Like it's always that up and down stuff.
We've had so many issues. Don't even worry about
it. Somehow it worked out. It took a while longer than you probably expected. So sorry.
No,
it's fine.
It's fine. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hang up, or well, that's it, right?
Yeah. We'll just say bye.
Bye.
Have fun in Mexico.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right.
All right. Bye, Sheila.